Dear Uber, it's been a while. Let's talk. What's up guys, your driver Mike here, back with another video. This channel is dedicated to the rideshare space, so if you're a driver, a passenger, or someone just interested in the rideshare space, consider subscribing. Dear Uber, 2017 was a very interesting year, and as someone who signed up in October of 2015, I saw a lot happen year over year. Some good, some bad, and I saw it firsthand in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, especially with some autonomous cars. This is an open letter to you. A lot of the good things that happened with Uber is continuing the flexibility on the driver app. As a part-time Uber driver, I know a lot of us enjoy the flexibility of driving for Uber. Whether you drive part-time or full-time, a lot of us enjoy the flexibility, but really the other half of that situation is the pay. Now, you made a lot of great improvements in 2017. Let's focus on the 180 days of change. Now, of course, with the big change in leadership, we're all hoping that there's a good direction going forward with your new leadership team and with your new CEO. The 180 days of change was kind of met with a 50-50 split on if this was a good, successful program or if this is one that was more of a PR move and really didn't help drivers in the long run. I understand that the 180 Days of Change was a program specifically to help drivers, and I do see a lot of benefits that came from the program. Personally, super long time coming was finally thank you for in-app tipping. I use Uber Eats all the time. It's very easy to tip your drivers within the app. Guys, I think you knew this. This was something that was a long time coming. Finally is on the app, and we appreciate that. Other improvements that I really appreciate as a driver is 24-hour phone support. At least I can talk to somebody on the phone live, and I have used that service. Other services like paid wait time, a big incentive bonus for drivers. Thank you, at least I get some kind of a paid wait time for waiting more than 2 minutes. Another benefit that really should have been on the Uber app for some time is ratings protections, and especially thank you for putting the ratings definitions for passengers. Also, good idea for bumping up the trip destination filters, although understandably, if it actually happens in practice where the 6 filters weren't really working for everybody, I can understand having to scale that back to 2. I want to talk about the driver advisory forum that just happened this past week. There are big things that I want to highlight to you that you need to do to improve relationships with drivers. Now, again, the 180 Days of Change was part of that, and we need to talk about the driver advisory forum and what else you can do going forward to really make a relationship with drivers. But before we get into that, guys, have you looked in your rideshare rearview mirror? As I'm sure you very well know, your competitors, your Lyft competitors doubled their rides last year. Not only that, but they're showing more earnings for drivers, more tips earned from drivers, and there's a reason for that. Now, you really need to make it a good 2018, and not just for drivers, but for passengers, because you really lost some market share to Lyft, who again, doubled their rides, increased driver earnings, and tips for drivers in 2017. Now, granted, 2017 was a transition year for you. We're hopeful that the new leadership team, the new CEO this year in 2018 can really put everything behind them, lawsuits and drama going forward, and improve the system for drivers and passengers. Now, given that you can manage any kind of internal issues, lawsuits that are coming against the company, I want 2018 to be a good year. Now, in order to be a good year, we have to talk about one thing, and that are rates. Now, the argument from really everybody is, should you increase rates or should you not increase rates? So in order to better lay this out on the table, let's look at both cost benefit. Let's look at reasons for why to increase rates. Let's look at reasons for not increasing rates. If you increase rates, you can take out the unpredictability of surge pricing, which is really the only pain point for your passengers. As far as drivers, you can see more potential driver retention because drivers are happier, and importantly, drivers have predictable pay because they're driving on a higher per mile standard. If you want to have more predictability of drivers on the road, increasing rates will again allow you to decrease the surge, the boost incentives, any other one-time incentives. Well, drivers may go out there just driving for those incentives and really not driving at any other time. If you increase rates, you can get drivers on the road really at any time because the rate per mile, the standard rate, works better for them. Now let's also consider the new drivers coming on the platform if you were to increase rates. Now it's no secret that a lot of markets, especially big markets, have plenty of drivers already. Now this is great for passengers as passengers can always get a reliable ride instantly as there's drivers on every single block. But consider if you raise the rates, you may want to taper how many new drivers can come into certain markets. One of the big concerns I've heard from you and other influencers is that raising rates is going to hurt the market. I don't agree with this, especially if you're increasing rates by a nominal amount per mile, and my suggestion is to taper that amount over a 3 to 6 month period. Now, of course, trying a beta test of this or trying it in just certain markets, you can really see how it does in live active markets. Remember, like the destination filter program, it seemed to work a certain way in beta testing, but actually worked a completely different way when live. This is a similar scenario for price increase beta testing. Perhaps the price increase in beta testing tells you that it is not a good idea, when perhaps in reality, if you see this in a live market, again, testing in just a few markets may actually work for the best. Raising rates are going to make drivers happier overall. It really doesn't inconvenience passengers too much anyway because they're happy with the Uber service already, and is going to increase your bottom line by bringing you in a higher revenue stream. But perhaps you don't want to raise rates. I can understand that, but let me suggest a few things you can do if you're not going to raise rates. You have so many tenured drivers out there. Drivers who have driven thousands and thousands of miles on the Uber platform over the years. We need to do something to reward tenured drivers, and I've mentioned this before, some kind of earnings incentives for drivers. If we're not going to increase the standard mileage rate, we need to have some kind of contests, incentives, or random customer service incentives for these drivers. If drivers have an exceptional month of great customer service feedback, perhaps give them a small reward. If a driver has hit 5,000 rides, whatever threshold you like, perhaps give them another reward. These don't have to be wildly high incentives for these drivers, as really anything helps, and it shows that you're really watching drivers and seeing when they succeed and rewarding them as well. There also should be a balance of incentives going to those tenured drivers as well as newer drivers that are just signing up. All drivers across the spectrum deserve some kind of incentives from time to time. If there's not going to be an increase in rates, perhaps looking at rewarding those, again, tenured drivers or newer drivers, everywhere in between is going to help everybody. Like I mentioned before, there's really two things that drivers look for when driving for Uber: flexibility and earnings. If we're not going to increase rates, then the flexibility part is still there, but drivers month after month or year after year may get unhappy driving on the platform when they really look at their earnings. So if you're not going to increase rates, expect some higher turnover. As we move into 2018, there's one thing that we could really touch on that's not pay rates. This is transparency. Transparency with the new driver advisory forum. Transparency with driver events, hub meetings, whatever it may be. Being more transparent with your information to drivers is only going to help. Consider live streaming events with drivers, community events. Consider live streaming the Driver Advisory Council meetings as well. What I would love to see is not only some of these live streams happen, but having Uber reps in the live chat as well to interact with drivers. For drivers that can be at these community events or the new driver advisory forum, this allows for continued live dialogue with someone at Uber. If anything, we need to have transparency as far as reporting what was discussed at these meetings or what was covered in these community events. Give us some data, the data on the in-app surveys for drivers, asking them how satisfied they are driving for Uber. Show us some of that data, some of that reporting, and we're here to help. You can definitely ask us in those live streams. Of course, the drivers can now add in-app feedback for the Uber system. But once we would submit feedback in the app, give us some kind of reporting, again, some kind of data about where that information is actually going and how it's being used. If we can make 2018 a strong year for Uber, that's going to help you distance yourself from your fast-pacing competitors. It's going to make passengers and drivers happier, strengthening the platform for the entire year going into 2019. Uber, those are just a few thoughts from me to you about how we can improve the platform in 2018. As you continue programs like your autonomous driving this year, next year, and the years to come, keep us in the know. Let us know how things are going, the future of Uber, and drivers' future with Uber as well. Drivers, passengers, or Uber, if you have any additional thoughts, please post them in the comments below. Your driver Mike here. I do appreciate you watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to join the Your Driver team, and I will see you in the next one.